The Legion Pro 5i is the best performing 5070 Ti laptop that we've ever tested, and guys, that is a really good thing. It has a very comfortable keyboard and a nice display, but I have to be honest, we were expecting a little bit more, especially given the hype around this laptop and how much it costs. What we don't like about it is that although its palm rests are pretty comfortable when gaming, its keyboard deck gets very warm. Its ports are also really far forward, which may get in your way, and its battery life is pretty bad. This laptop just isn't quite as magical as the Legion Pro 7i. That addresses some of these issues, but then again, it costs even more. When it comes to the Legion Pro 5i, we feel you should take a really good look at other competitors before jumping in. I'll be back at the end of the video to go through those, but for now, I'm handing off to Sierra for our full review.
Thanks, Josh. First, we'll look at how the Ultra 9 275HX chip does in this laptop, starting with Geekbench. Here, the Legion Pro 5i does very well, only being beat out by the MacBook Pro with the M4 Pro chip and the Strix G16 with AMD's own highest-end HX3D processor. Moving over to Cinebench, which tests the processor when it's maxed out, we see a very solid result. It is only beat out by the larger Legion Pro 7i with the same Intel chip and the Strix G16 with its AMD chip once again. When we look at how much power these laptops are drawing during a 10-minute Cinebench run, we see the Legion Pro 5i draws more power than most of these, around the same as the better performing AMD Strix G16. The 7i draws the most with the same chip and performs the best. Between the last-gen i7 chip and the other Strix G16 and this new HX chip in the Legion Pro 5i, you can really see how far Intel has come in terms of power efficiency. This new chip draws around the same power and performs much better. Moving over to CPU core temps, we see most of these gaming laptops do a good job of keeping their processors in a reasonable range on average. The M4 Pro chip heats up quite a bit here. For GPU performance, we'll start with TimeSpy, which is a DirectX 12 gaming benchmark. Here we see the Legion Pro 5i do the best of all of the 5070 Ti gaming laptops, only being beat out by the RTX 5080 in the 7i. It is a full wattage 5070 Ti at 140 watts, by the way. Moving over to Port Royal, which is a ray tracing benchmark, we see a similarly strong result, except the Strix G16 is hot on the 5i's heels here. Moving over to our gaming benchmarks, starting in Cyberpunk with DLSS upscaling and frame generation on, we see the Legion Pro 5i do excellent here. It performs the best among laptops with this hardware. Turning frame generation off, that trend continues, beating out most of the laptops on this list except the Legion Pro 7i with the better 5080. Keeping frame generation off, we tested Monster Hunter Wilds benchmark on Ultra. The 5i keeps the lead among all of the 5070 Ti laptops. In our next two games, we turn DLSS features off completely. Taking a look at Forza Horizon 5 first, we see the Strix G16 almost catches up with the 5i in average FPS and just barely beats it in 1% lows. We'd consider this a tie. In our last game, Final Fantasy XIV's Dawntrail benchmark, the Strix actually does the best. Both of the Legions underperform here, which is a trend we've seen on this benchmark with some 50 series laptops, and we aren't quite sure why. It still performs well, but this is an example of where you may see a little worse performance than the Strix in some games. Next, we'll look at creative tasks, starting with Premiere Pro. Here we see the Legion actually fall behind a little bit, but it still does very well. The better processor in the AMD Strix G16 might be helping it here. In DaVinci Resolve Studio, the 5i is back in the lead of laptops with similar components, landing it right below the 7i with the 5080. DaVinci Resolve tends to make better use of the hardware than Premiere Pro, so we believe the Intel chips in the Legions pull ahead here due to their quick sync feature. All of the benchmarks we've shown you so far are from the laptop's highest performance modes, but we also do a different mode breakdown to see how your thermals and power draw might differ in those modes. The Legion Pro 5i has 3 modes: Quiet, Balanced, and Performance. Performance offers the best results, but it does get quite loud. It also demonstrates how there are diminishing marginal returns of feeding the CPU more power. It draws nearly twice as much power for a score that is only 18% better. We'd probably recommend Balanced for everyday CPU tasks for both of these reasons. Regardless, all of them stay plenty cool enough on the keyboard deck for comfortable use. In gaming, on the other hand, this laptop really heats up. This is disappointing. Even in quiet mode, its keyboard is getting up to 45 degrees Celsius, which is uncomfortable, and on balanced mode, we measured 48 Celsius. We decided to dive into this a bit deeper and get an idea of where the laptop was getting the warmest to the touch. We took a thermal video, and it appears that it gets warm across almost the whole keyboard. Even the WASD keys are close enough to the heat that it could get uncomfortable to game on around 43 Celsius. The palm rests don't get nearly as warm, which is nice to see, but if you use the arrow keys at all, they're right on a hotspot. Looking at its heat and fan noise versus competitors in gaming, when each of them are in their highest performance modes, the Legion Pro 5i is not that far off. If you want a cool-feeling gaming laptop, the Strix G16 is by far the best here. In CPU-only tasks, as we showed you earlier, the 5i stays cooler on the keyboard deck than much of its competition. The Legion Pro 7i, however, seems to have a more capable cooling solution. Fan noise during CPU tasks is about the same as it was in gaming. The MacBook Pro is really the only laptop with decent results here. If you plan to do any performance tasks while unplugged, you'd get reasonable results, but the Legion Pro 5i still throttles a lot here, as do all of the gaming laptops on this list. Unfortunately, this doesn't pay off in good battery life, lasting only around 5 hours in either use case, video playback and Microsoft Office tasks. You can see here that the more expensive Legion Pro 7i has a larger 100 watt-hour battery versus the 80 in this laptop, and it lasts a bit longer. Let's talk the look and feel of the chassis next. The black coating on it looks nice, but it does pick up fingerprints pretty badly. The Legion Pro 5i feels sturdy with minimal screen and keyboard deck flex. As we said earlier, this laptop gets pretty warm during GPU performance tasks, which you'd think would mean it's a thinner laptop, but it actually isn't. It's around the same thickness as the Legion Pro 7i and a little shorter depth-wise. The main difference between the two is that the 7i has larger vents across the backside, while the 5i has smaller ones. This is likely a reason why the 7i stays a bit cooler to the touch when under load. I'm not sure why the 5i didn't get these bigger vents, as it definitely has room for it. Regardless, neither of these laptops have vents along the side, which means you get to avoid hot air blowing on your mouse hand. Last thing, the front of the chassis has a bit of a squared-off edge that might be a little annoying when typing because it's so thick. You might feel it cutting into your wrists. Josh finds this uncomfortable, but I don't mind it as much. The display on our Legion Pro 5i is an OLED 2560 by 1600 panel that refreshes at up to 165 Hz. There are some configurations that go up to 240 Hz. It can also lower its refresh rate down to 60 to conserve battery. Lot of good that's doing. Like most OLEDs, it has inky blacks and covers a wide color gamut. It also gets pretty bright at over 500 nits, which is nice to see. Unfortunately, it is a bit glossy and reflective, which means you may see reflections in brighter environments. We also detected PWM flickering at some brightness levels, which may annoy some people. Lastly, this display does support G-Sync, but does not support Advanced Optimus. This means you do have to reboot to switch between DGPU, hybrid, and iGPU modes in the included Legion Space app. Let's talk keyboard next, which Lenovo does well. It feels like it has ample travel, and it's more comfortable than a lot of mid-range gaming laptops. The keyboard has a completely standard layout with full-sized arrow keys and an included numpad. For RGB, you get a multi-zone backlight with multiple customization options in the included Legion app. It looks pretty nice, but not quite as nice as per-key lighting. Overall, it's a really good keyboard. It's just not the most perfect Lenovo keyboard in my opinion. I feel the Legion Pro 7i feels better, and this one has a slight rattle to the keys when you press them hard. It's also missing a fingerprint reader, and the webcam doesn't feature IR, so there are no biometrics on this laptop. Very disappointing at this price point. The trackpad is pretty basic. Nothing wrong with it, and tracking seems smooth enough, but it's still a mechanical one with a loud click. It's not as premium, precise, or accurate as a haptic one, which we'd really like to see in more gaming laptops. For ports, on the left we have a proprietary charging port, an HDMI 2.1 port, a Thunderbolt 4 port, another USB-C that supports power delivery up to 100 watts, and a 10 gigabit USB-A port. On the right we have a 1 gig Ethernet port, a webcam privacy switch, two 5 gigabit USB-A ports, and a headphone mic combo jack. The location of the ports is pretty poor, as they come pretty far forward down the laptop, which means cables could get in your way. The speakers on this laptop have decent clarity and great vocals. On the other hand, they are lacking in both volume and bass. Above average, but not the best we've heard. Take a listen. Here's how the 1440p webcam looks and sounds on the Lenovo Legion Pro 5i. Unfortunately, it does not feature Windows biometrics. To test Linux, we booted up Fedora 42. It successfully booted, and some of it worked, but it was nearly unusable due to a display issue. There were streaks across the screen. We feel the display drivers would probably need to be updated. We don't do a full install, but we saw some folks on Reddit having compatibility issues as well. Upgradability and maintenance are phenomenal on this laptop. There are some different size screws to be aware of on the back, but Once you get it open, it's really easy to access everything. It has room for 2 full-size 2280 or short 2242 SSDs, and comes with a short 1TB PCIe Gen 4 one. Its 32 gigs of RAM has a small metal cover over it, but it's easy to take off and upgrade if needed. The Wi-Fi 7 card is also replaceable, and so is the 80 watt-hour battery. Back to you, Josh.
Thanks, Sierra. So, the Legion Pro 5i, it's a good laptop if you want great performance and you don't mind a little heat. If you want a cooler feeling laptop, then you really have 2 choices: Asus's Strix G16 or HP's Omen Max 16. The Strix has that AMD desktop CPU that a lot of you guys are really going to like, but its keyboard it isn't as comfortable as the Legion's, and you may feel some slight fan vibrations through the keyboard deck. The Omen has a keyboard that slopes down. If you find thick gaming laptops bite into your wrist like I do and you find that annoying, then the Omen is the way to go. By the way, we only have the more expensive 5080 version of the Omen in, which is why you didn't see it in our graphs. If on the other hand you're okay with a warm-feeling laptop, you may want to consider Acer's new Predator Helios Neo 16S. It costs a lot less for the same specs, it's also lighter. That being said, the Predator doesn't perform as well as the Legion Pro 5i, and it's the loudest when under load. Speaking personally, I'd get the Omen, and Sierra would go with the Strix with AMD. I'll put links, as I said, to all these laptops down below the video, and keep in mind they all regularly go on massive sales. You do not want to be the person who got tricked into paying full price. Our website, bestlaptop.deals, is here to help you. It has a price tracker that tracks a laptop's price right across retailers. We even call out when a laptop's current price makes it a good or great deal. And we just launched custom price drop notifications, so go check out bestlaptop.deals. Until next time, do something awesome with your day, and I will catch you later.